I know.
Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist is an emotional roller coaster where Zoey encounters people in her life unknowingly singing to her about their intimate feelings with song and dance. It's very hard to describe. You've got to see it. It's a show that makes you feel good. I'm Rob LaCouria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, and I'm here with co-star Peter Gallagher, who plays Zoey's father, Mitch. Peter, what people love about this show is that it wears its heart on its sleeve. It's not afraid to go there and be emotional and connect with audiences. And it's just what we need right now. What do you think?
Well, Rob, it's really good to hear you say that because I couldn't agree with you more. When I first read this script, it was about a year ago. I was doing an episode of it was about a year ago. And just before, the week before, I was doing an episode of Grace and Frankie with Mary Steenburgen, and she was playing, unbeknownst to Jane Fonda, my current wife, was my ex-wife. She was talking about the show she was going to do in Vancouver and about singing and dancing. And I'm thinking, God, everybody's doing musicals. And I've done these Broadway, nobody. And all of a sudden, I was asked to do this show and I read it. And I was so thrilled because what I saw in the show a year ago was a story that through song, hit songs, and dance, and the writer's story, it's a show about all the things that connect us, all the things that we share. And those hit songs are very powerful because they already reside in us, and they're just waiting to be vibrated. And as it turns out, when our show finally came to be and was released, we had bigger problems. Because I was responding initially to thinking this is a show that brings people together. It's all about the stuff that brings us together. And we are in a country right now and in a world that's very divided for power, for politics, for profit. And we're all starting to question each other and look at each other side eyes. And this is all about the things that we share. And so when the show started, it was pretty much coincided with the beginning of a pandemic. And what I applaud Austin Winsberg, our creator, for is several things. First of all, he's drawing from real experience. His father had the disease that I have in this, PSP, and that was the sort of the inspiration for the show, thinking what might be going on in this dad he loved, this bright man's mind that he could no longer reach. 2, he's written a musical before on Broadway. And 3, he's just really, really talented. So it was specific, and he had great love for song and dance. And we have Mandy Moore and her team who were the perfect people to allow essential non-dancers, some of us, to look like we could walk and chew gum at the same time. So it was this really special thing. And on top of it all, the cast, we all really love each other. And so we've been sharing, we meet by Zoom after each night when the episodes air, or like today we did just because we missed each other, because we had that same sensation of making the show, that we felt connected with each other. And as people are responding, it's been so powerful and gratifying when I'm hear from people whose dad had PSP or their aunt, or they realize that we took some time and work to try to get it right, and it validated their experience. I'm broad. When I work in the theater, the thing that when things work, what happens is first of all, you're there when it happens. And for a moment, nobody in that audience feels alone. And for a moment, everyone feels like they all belong to the same tribe. And that's the power of storytelling. And that's why it's so essential. And that's why we feel so grateful that we didn't screw this up. And it's finding an audience, and it's finding a global audience that it's really one of the more special experiences. So I feel the same way too. I'm really, really, really happy that we can be sharing this story at a time like this.
Yeah, and you know what I find really interesting is that in this day and age, in pop culture, it's very difficult to pull off a show that is earnest and sincere and honest without it having to be ironic or sarcastic or sassy or, you know what I mean? And
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
mean is not funny. I'm sorry.
No. And here we are. Why do you think this show was able to get away with being so earnest and open and sincere without it having to go down the other route?
Well, I think timing is all. I think the timing is very good for this show. And also, I think it's specific to the individuals.
Mm.
I think, it's hard to underestimate the power of an ensemble. And by an ensemble, I don't just mean the actors on stage or on the camera, but also Austin, our choreographers, our brilliant camera operator, Bradley Crosby, our brilliant cinematographer, Shasta Spahn. I mean, we were all enclosed in couple of huge stages where we had a dance studio, a recording studio, the houses, the this and this. And we all, when the numbers would work, and they often would, we could feel it in the room, and so could the crew. So it's just one of those things you just hope to experience a few times in your life, where you show up with people you don't know and you end up forming a family and making something really nice that didn't exist before. And in this case, it seems to have a real place in the world that we're in. And that's the best thing you can hope for.
Definitely. Now, we need to talk about the season finale. Anybody who hasn't seen it yet should probably go away for a little while and come back. But we can't not talk about it because it trended all over social media. Millions of people were brought to tears after Mitch passes away. What were your thoughts on the outpouring of real grief over losing this character?
Well, I've played a lot of different kind of characters, and most of them people wouldn't have been too sorry to see go. And even if they were a little sorry, they'd be a little conflicted. Yeah, but he had it coming.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a double whammy. And then, first of all, it was really, really gratifying that I was able to portray someone with PSP in a compelling enough fashion, so the people who were familiar with the disease felt honored or respected their thing. But the other side is that it was sad for me. It's like getting cut from the team in a cosmic sense. But I knew that going in. I also knew that, I didn't know if I'd ever get another chance to do these crazy things I've done for a few thousand people at a time on Broadway, singing and dancing. And, but it was just a very interesting, powerful experience for me. My mother had Alzheimer's, which is not dissimilar from PSP. And it reminded me of, towards the end there, when I had done a movie with James Cagney years ago, a TV movie, and with Art Carney too. And towards the end, Jimmy was a little tired, and he would just sort of sit in his chair. You could forget, unless you didn't want to forget, that he was there. He'd be, hey, give me that 4x. Yeah, you reach it home and this. And if I'm sitting there in my chair as we're shooting these last on the couch and stuff, kind of a similar thing happened. And you realize, it's sort of like your own rehearsal. It's just, that the inevitable will happen, and hopefully in the proper order of things, these kids around dancing and singing will be still dancing and singing when I'm not. And, but mostly I'll just miss them. I'll miss being with them week in and week out, but that doesn't take anything away from having had the chance to, listen, I've done 1 million Broadway musical workshops over the years. And they almost never, finding a new musical that works is like finding a unicorn. And so I knew we'd be swinging for the fences, and I had no expectation that we'd knock it out of the park or anything. I just knew what a great thing to be trying to do right now for, just to show, as I say, all that connects us, all that we share in this weird world we're in right now. And so that's, that was really gratifying. That was really gratifying that people what I find also gratifying, as much as it had to do with what we were doing and how well we did it, is how many people hadn't realized how much grief they were carrying.
Yeah.
About losing their dad 10 years ago, and they couldn't take time to grieve. And so for a lot of people, I mean, I'd be honest with you, it moved me too in a lot of ways. It keeps bubbling up and residing in me. My parents have been gone for a long time, and as I say, my mom had Alzheimer's for 20 years, and so it just awakens that essential human vulnerability which we all share. And so and plus working with Mary Steenburgen.
Oh, man.
That's the other thing. Whatever I had to do, if she was in the scene, or Jane, or Andrew, I mean, any of the buddy, but particularly Mary, she's so truthful as an actor that all you have to do is listen. Then you're right where you need to be. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't be more grateful for the people on the camera, behind the camera, that were assembled to put this, this crazy show together.
Yeah. And, despite Mitch being incapacitated and unable to talk, obviously the highlight of the show is the heart songs, and Zoey being able to connect with her father. It reminded me, as a father myself to a daughter, like you, that profound connection between fathers and daughters is a really special thing to be able to watch on TV. What were your thoughts on that angle of the show?
Well, I love it. I just, and also to answer your question earlier about why the show wasn't saccharine, it had a lot to do, as I say, with this ensemble. And I think of Jane Levy in the title character. I mean, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Because she had all the depth, all the comic chops, and still was surprising and could dance and could sing. We had all these surprises all along the way. Zach Orth, who plays my caregiver, I wonder if he can sing. I don't know. I'm sure he can sing. But I don't know. Turns out his dad was an opera singer who had died in July. And he sounded like the voice of angels.
Yeah.
So there was that kind of fortuitous, a lot of things like that happened. People's parents, my mother-in-law died and all this. People lost family. People, there were events that were happening that seemed to be all, in the world of the story we were telling.
Yeah.
I don't think I answered your first question. Maybe I did. I'm sorry I talked too much there.
No, well, I just think there's something special about any show that can highlight the relationship between parents and children, but particularly for me, I have one of each, but it's a different relationship I find between fathers and daughters. And this show, especially when you're dancing in the finale, it's pretty special.
Well, it really is. I have a little girl who's 26 now, and she's still my little girl. And there is something very powerful about a dad and a daughter. And I'm really glad, too, that we got to have a moment with my son. But I used to say to my friend, if you're looking in any way in a partner for the kind of love that your mother might have shown you, I said, you can't expect that out of a partner. But if you are lucky enough to have a little girl,
yeah,
and you walk in the door and she's under the age of 13, 12, 14, or after the age of 25, you're going to walk in and you go, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This creature who just looks at you and you can do no wrong, and it fills your heart and expands it 1,000 times. And you think, oh, that's why I'm working hard. That's what I'm doing this for.
Yeah, that's exactly the right way to put it, I think. On the flip side, though, because we've talked about how wonderful the show is, I would have imagined as a performer, and you've been around for a while, you've played lots of different roles, but this one was so limited in terms of how you can move your body, and what you can say. I mean, you can't do a lot of that stuff apart from when you're singing. Did you find that, were you apprehensive at all about taking on a role like that and how challenging it would have been?
Not really. I looked forward to the challenge. As I say, it was kind of, I felt reassured that Austin was going to be on the set a lot. And I love his writing. He's such a wonderful writer. And the fact that he lived the story, I knew that if I was really screwing it up, I'd hear about it. And if he was too moved to stay in the room, I'd think, okay, or if the crew was moved, I'd think, okay, we're moving in the right direction. But it's just, what you do. It's like, just because, first of all, physically it was difficult, just maintaining my what I had to do with my spine and the rest of my body and maintaining that. But if you accept the conditions, I imagine, do as one would in that situation. And if you understand that sort of the brain involvement in chemistry and the symptoms and how they're expressed differently in other people, so it's not necessarily a rigid series of symptoms and characteristics. I found it kind of liberating because you do the best you can. If your eyes don't go up or down and they don't really go to the side, and it doesn't prevent you from feeling, it just prevents you from expressing in the same way. And so what was nice too was, I didn't get a lot of notes because we were kind of making it up, except for the singing and the dance. And the funny thing too is, while you were sleeping, was that right? You were saying the 25th anniversary?
Yeah.
Well, the guy who directed While You Were Sleeping, John Turteltaub, directed 2 episodes of Zoey's.
Wow.
So when he said, Gallagher, you're not even talking in this one either. And
what is happening? It's amazing.
Lucky for you. In fact, his dad almost departed the premises towards the end of the show. So there was a lot of weird kind of intersections.
That's bizarre. Well, I mean, speaking of the 25th anniversary, I couldn't believe that it was 25 years. It made me feel slightly old.
Dead.
Oh my God. But seriously, like, that film is like, it's a classic now. People love it. And working with Sandra Bullock. And what was the highlight of that film for you?
For me, that movie was 2 things. First of all, working with a lot of my heroes, Peter Boyle, Jack Warden, Glynis Johns, and meeting who I was sure then was going to be a huge star, Sandy Bullock, who was beautiful. And most importantly, she was a responsible number 1 on the call sheet. She was generous, she was kind, she was on time, and she took her position at the top of the cast to responsibility for it. So that was great. And Peter Boyle and I ended up being like brothers. It was like we were cut from the same cloth, and we just hung out and had a blast. And the other thing that was cool about that was John Turteltaub gave me a little bit of elbow room to try to find a place where this character was more than just a cipher and an awful road sign that said, go this way, go that way, anywhere but here. Instead, just find this guy who's successful in business and not ready to get married yet, and a little bit of clueless about things that don't involve money and like emotions. And so it just gave us a little more room to have some fun and really explore the possibility if you actually had amnesia and you were somebody convinced you had amnesia, then maybe I don't really remember, hence that ad lib that John loved. Do I like Jell-O?
Yeah.
Or something like that. But
very good. It is so good. Peter, I just want to thank you so much for making us smile, but more importantly, making us cry. It's a nice thing to be able to feel something when you're watching TV. And I think your performance on this season of the show was remarkable. And thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Rob. And please stay well, you and your family. And here's to, I don't want to jinx it. Hopefully we'll have yeah. I won't say any more. Okay.
We know what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
And everybody click subscribe, go to Gold Derby, make your predictions, and watch all of our great contender chats with this one just like Peter.